Hello YouTube, it is Hannah here, and welcome to SMAUGISH, in my first, which is rather exciting, completely bookish video. If you discount my Gothic literature series, which, I mean, it would be fair if you did. I will continue that Gothic literature series, by the way, so watch this space. So talk about some of the books I've read recently, whether I'm going to keep them on my bookshelves or whether I'm going to donate them, and then some of the books that I'm going to be reading next. And yeah, if that sounds like something you'd be into, awesome, grab yourself a cup of tea. This is All Things Nice from Bird and Blend, which I'm really sad about because they're discontinuing it. And it's so tasty. It's like white tea and licorice and roses, and it's really nice. But yeah, get yourself a cup of tea. Leave me a like, a comment, and maybe even a cheeky subscribe. Let's talk about books. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is some books that I have read recently. Some of these are on my Goodreads or my like reading journal list and everything. Some of them I forgot when I read them, and I forgot to put them up there, so I'm just going to talk about them. And yeah, like I said, whether I'm going to keep them on my bookcase or I'm going to donate them. I work in a charity shop, so number one, it's terrible for my book buying obsession and my book buying addiction, because generally speaking, whenever we get new books, I have like first dibs, so it's terrible. But also it means that I can donate books pretty easily. I'll take them to work. I've started doing a thing where, especially if it's a book that I've donated myself that I really want to recommend, I kind of like put it on our counter, like by our till, like recommended by staff. I'd give a little sentence sort of summary of it, and it worked really well. The last one I did that with was Dark Matter by Michelle Paver. I've actually still not finished, but I will finish it. I'm determined to finish it. It's just other things got in the way. But yeah, so I have a pile of books here that I'm going to talk about. Some of them I'll give a mini review about. One or two of them I'm planning on doing like a specific review video for, so I will hold off that. But yeah, let's get going. So the first one, and I can't believe it took me this long to read, but Death on the Nile by Agatha Christie. I love this story. I remember having like a point and click missing object, like hidden object game based on Death of the Nile, and the TV film with Peter Ustinov as Poirot is, I love that film, it's so good. So I know the story very well, but I'd never ever read any Agatha Christie novels. I've read a couple of her short stories, but I'd never read any of her novels. So I picked this up. I think I actually did buy this in a charity shop, I'm sure of it. And I thought I better read it, like it's time. And I was amazed. I have Murder on the Orient Express somewhere to read at some point in the nearest future, but I was absolutely astounded by how contemporary her writing felt. And it was really good, it was really gripping. It was another one that I flew through pretty quickly because I was enjoying it so much. So yeah, this one I'm definitely going to be keeping. I can see myself potentially writing about it at some point in the future. If you don't know, I'm a PhD student doing English Lit, so, but yeah, definitely going to be staying on my shelf. Next one is another one that is definitely staying on my shelf. I think quite a few of these next ones are staying on my shelves, and that's Full Throttle by Joe Hill. Joe is, Joe, sounded like I know him. Oh, Joe, yeah, Joe, my mate. Joe Hill is one of my favourite contemporary-ish writers of horror. He is Stephen King's son, but I think he is such a good writer that there's not really that much nepotism involved. Full Throttle is a collection of short stories that includes, as it says, In the Tall Grass, which is now a Netflix film that I need to watch because In the Tall Grass was such a good story. And it has, I think, at least one of these stories he wrote with Stephen King, his father. Hot take, I think Joe Hill is miles better than Stephen King, but controversial, I know. Maybe that should have been my unpopular book opinion. Anyway, yeah, Joe Hill is incredible. He also wrote Horns, Nosferatu, The Firefighter, and my favourite of his books, like his full-length novels, is Heart-Shaped Box. That is, I need to reread that again soon because that is just an incredible book. But yeah, Full Throttle has got a load of short stories, and my rosary is tangled. Yeah, so Full Throttle is a short story collection, and I love reading short stories because you can dip in and out of them. If you don't have long, you can just think, okay, I'll read this story, and it doesn't feel as much pressure as sometimes picking up a whole novel can feel when you don't have that much time. So yeah, absolutely love this, and it is of course staying on my bookcase because it's by one of my favourite authors. Again, another book that is staying on my bookcase, and I probably will write about it at some point. It's The Coldest Girl in Goldtown by Holly Black. Holly Black is known for her, like, I think this technically would be a YA book, but she is known for her like fairy tale books. She also wrote, I'm sure, didn't she write? She wrote like a children's book as well, like a really famous children's book. I don't know what it is. But she wrote a children's book. I'll insert it somewhere. She also wrote one of my favourite of the fae YA books, which is The Darkest Part of the Forest. The Coldest Girl in Goldtown is her take on vampires. And okay, so many people, I was reading reviews of this and it was really Marmite. Some people loved it, some people hated it. Someone said that they recommended reading Lost Souls by Poppy Seabright instead. I vomited in my mouth a little bit. I hate Lost Souls by Poppy Seabright. Controversial opinion, it is trash. I had to read it for my master's degree, and I don't think anyone else got a word in edgeways in that seminar because it was just me and our tutor arguing about Lost Souls by Poppy Seabright. I can understand it had its place, the zeitgeist, but I hate it. I hated every second of that book. This is miles better and nothing like Lost Souls, which makes it miles better. And yeah, I loved it, and it's a really interesting take on vampires, and I will be keeping this on my shelves. Talking of vampires, Draculas Brethren, which is edited by Richard Delby and Brian J. Frost. Richard Delby also had another collection called Dracula's Brood, which was originally released I think in the 80s, and this one is kind of like a companion collection to that. And the idea is these are again short stories, but they're kind of like released in around the time of Dracula, so everything from the beginning of the 19th century to the beginning of the 20th century. Dracula was released in 1897, and it was not the first vampire story in English, or B, like at its publication, it wasn't even the most successful. So this has found a really interesting selection of some quite rare some quite rare vampire stories. I think the other book, like the companion book, Dracula's Brood, is better. But this has still got some really good stories. It's got some stories that I kind of did skip through because they were a little bit dull, but it's still such a good one. And anyone that has any passing interest in horror or Gothic literature or vampire fiction, look out for Dracula's Brethren and the other one, Dracula's Brood. I think they're really important ones to have in your collection. So of course I will be keeping this on my shelf. Okay, next book, and I think this is one of the first ones that I'm going to be donating, not because I didn't like it, but because it's going to be my next recommendation when I go to work tomorrow, and that's If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. This has got that like dark academia vibe thing. People like compare it to like The Secret History by Donna Tartt and all that kind of stuff. I've not read that yet. I've not read The Secret History. I probably will at some point, but it's not on my immediate to read radar, shall we say. But I'm really glad I read this one. This is much more my street because it's a bunch of Shakespearean acting students, and Shakespeare is another of my loves. and it was just, this is really interesting premise. A really interesting take on that like fine line between love and hate and friendship and enemy, and yeah, I really do recommend this one, which is why actually I am going to be donating it, because I want somebody else to read it, and yeah, but I really enjoyed this. Another book that I will be keeping on my shelves, and this is one of the books that I'm going to be doing its own specific review video for, and that's Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. And I've only just finished this book, and it was incredible. I read it in about 3 days, just because I had other things to do, so I couldn't just sit and read. If I'd had time to just sit and read, I would have finished this in one go. And one of the taglines from The Guardian is, if Lovecraft meets the Brontes in Latin America. That is absolutely true. Fungal Gothic and fungal horror and sort of myconid horror is something that is a real other interest of mine. Actually, one of my other PhD topics that I was sort of my other PhD projects that I applied to do was all about fungal horror and soil and grave dirt and stuff like that. So that is really in this book, and it was period, it's set in the very early 1950s, and it's another one of those books, a little bit like Rebecca with Mandalay and Jane Eyre with Thornfield, where the house has as much a presence in the book. Literally in this case though, the house is as much of a character as the actual people. So I love this book, and I will be keeping it on my shelves. And again, I'm possibly going to be writing about it really soon, but I can't really speak too much about that. So yeah, love this book. Okay, this is one of my first of the next 4 I'm going to be talking about are all kind of disappointments that I will be donating. And the first one is the Cottingley Cuckoo by A.J. Elwood, and it's kind of about fairy tales and the kind of Arthur Conan Doyle fairy hoax and all of that stuff, and literally the idea that a child is going to be a changeling, like cuckoos leave their eggs in the nests of other birds and things like that. And honestly, I don't remember much of it, which I think says a lot about it, and I didn't enjoy it half as much as I expected to, and it was one of those books that I kind of finished it a bit out of spite. So I am going to be donating this book. Another book that I was really disappointed with and will be donating is, and this may be controversial, but it's Luck and Booth by Jenny Fagan. Now, I read this book as part of a book club on Instagram, and loads of other people in the book club absolutely loved this book. And I think if you like more experimental styles of writing, like I think Piranesi is one that I think is quite similar, you will enjoy this. I didn't enjoy it. It's got lots of different POVs, and I kind of felt like they jumped towards it like throughout them a little bit too much. Some of the POVs I really enjoyed, some of them I didn't at all. And like the central overarching story, that kind of didn't make sense to me. I found it quite hard to work out what was happening. It's got some magical realism in there. It's got some kind of like vaguely gothic themes in there. But I was disappointed. I think I would have given this about 2.5, 3 out of 5. And that sort of like 5-star rating, yeah, would have been 2.5 out of 3. Sorry, 2.5 or 3. So yeah, I will be donating this book. Another book that I bought this from my shop, and I will be sending it back to my shop. And I literally just bought it because I didn't have anything else to read, and I didn't have anything to do at work. Sometimes when we don't have delivery, there was nothing to do. So I just went to the back and thought, okay, let's just have a book just to read while I'm waiting for customers or waiting for the volunteer to come and take over at the till. And I saw this one, and it's The Last Woman to be Hanged, the Ruth Ellis story by Robert Hancock, and I kind of just started reading it, and I had a train journey after work, and I thought, you know what, it's 50p, I'll get it and I'll finish it on the train. And it didn't really like get to, it was very, very, very biographical, less about the murder and, you know, all the things around it, and the trial than I thought there would be. I didn't realise it's quite an old book. This is obviously a republication, and yeah, his Robert Hancock sort of way of writing is not, we wouldn't enjoy it today. So I mean, it was really interesting, and her story is quite tragic, and she was one of the people, like her, like I said, she was the last woman to be hanged, so her execution really was one of the things that kind of fueled the fire of abolishing the death penalty in the UK. Yeah, I'm giving this back to the charity shops. Someone else, give it a go. I mean, maybe someone that was like that can remember her trial might get a bit more out of it, or someone that's into like true crime. I'm not a massive true crime fan, unless it's Victorian true crime, then I'm there. But yeah, I'm donating that one. And the last one that I'm going to talk about is another one that I was really disappointed with, and that's The Hidden People by Alison Littlewood, and I will be donating this one. It's based on a true story of an Irish man who burnt his wife to death because he thought she was a fairy, and it's kind of like the story of a man that goes, because his cousin has been murdered, and so he goes to try and like work out the truth, and yeah, he goes to her the little village that she lives in and tries to work out what happened, and then he kind of goes a bit mad, but it started off well and it just kind of fizzled out for me, but I mean, it was okay. I'm just not gonna keep it, and I don't see myself ever wanting to read it again, so I'm gonna donate it. So those are the books that I finished recently, and whether or not I'm gonna donate them or keep them. And now, just really quickly, I've got 5 books that I want to read next. So the first one, and my little Miskatonic library card bookmark is already in it, but I haven't actually started it yet, is Pine by Francine Toon, which I think is a bit of a folk horror sort of book, and I'm really looking forward to reading this because I've heard some really good things about it, and like I said, the whole Gothic horror thing is something I'm really getting into. Other books that I'm looking out for in secondhand bookshops is like All the Good Indians. I really want to read that. So Pine is set in Scotland, and yeah, really looking forward to getting my teeth into this one. I've also got, and this is a little bit different but fun, and this was a birthday present. This is Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir, and it's basically a lesbian Gothic fantasy story. What more could I want? It's about necromancer, there's, you know, politics, swordplay, lesbians. What more could I want, really? So I'm looking forward to reading that one. This one's a little bit different for me, and I bought this from my charity shop, and that's Greenwich Park by Catherine Faulkner, which I think is a bit more of a thriller, like a Gone Girl at the Window style thriller than I normally read. But the blurb interested me, and I just thought, you know, for 50p, might as well give it a go, and you know, if I don't like it, I can always donate it again. So yeah, interested to give this one a go. Like I said, it's not my normal sort of thing that I read. Then another one that's kind of like the sort of thing I would normally read is The Taxidermist Daughter by Kate Moss. Again, I've heard a lot about this one, and it's a bit more of a sort of a gothic-y thriller, like I do like, oh, what is it? The the silent people? I can't remember. There's a couple of books that I read last year and the year before, like Wackenhurst and stuff like that. I think this is a bit more in that vein. The corset, those silent figures, all those things. I really enjoyed those books. Didn't enjoy the Essex Serpent, but yeah, I think these are kind of similar to this one. So yeah, I thought I'd give it a go. I've never read a Kate Moss book before that I know of, because I know she did the Labyrinth and stuff like that, didn't she? Anyway, yeah, looking forward to giving this one a go. Again, I got that one from charity shop. And the last one, which is another birthday present, and this I got from my brother and sister-in-law, is The Leviathan by Rosie Andrews. This is a hardback. I do actually love hardbacks. I just love how they look on my shelf. I love reading a hardback. It makes me feel really fancy. And yeah, again, I'm really looking forward to eating. My brain will be eating the language up like a good soup. But yeah, this is kind of like a period historical, Gothic-y, monster-y, weird sort of book. And the cover is just so beautiful. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading this as well. So yeah, I think the one that I'm going to be reading next is Pine. And then I will be making my way through these. But of course, I do have bookshelves full of books that I want to read. So yeah, that was this one. Thank you so much for watching if you made it this far. Let me know if you've read any of those books that are on my list. If you've read any of the books that I'm keeping, but you would donate them. If you've read any of the books that I'm donating, but you would keep them, I would love to know. Also, have you read any of the books that I'm about to read? Have you read any of the books on my most pressing TBR pile? Let me know in the comments. And yeah, thank you so much for watching this, and I will see you again in my next video.